Okay, Rabotai, good evening and Mazal Tov for the wonderful Sheva Brachot that we had. It was a nice occasion. Because of that, we're starting late. I want to tell you, right, regarding the Parashat Tazria. This is actually what we read last week in the Parashat Shavua. And now we're up to it here as well. It happens to coincide, Baruch Hashem. We're on the same page as the Parashat Shavua. Very good. So, what does it talk about over here? The first thing it talks about, there's a lot of things in Vaikra, in Leviticus, that talks about which are not so relevant in our times. Sacrifices, the offerings in the Bet HaMikdash and in the temple. These things we don't do today. I want to cover more of the relevant topics. You know what I mean? So actually, right in the beginning of this parsha, there is a very relevant topic to us. What is it talking about? It's talking about a woman who gives birth. Very simple, right? Idea, right? So what happens when a woman gives birth? When she gives birth, it says the Torah, it depends on what? Whether she had a son or a daughter. Right? You remember that. Okay. So what's the difference? There's a difference regarding how much time she has to wait. What does that mean? You know what happens, right? The point is like this, right? When a woman gives birth, her uterus opens up like wide, really way open. It's like all the way open, 100%. So what happens is that everything gets discharged from there. The baby itself gets discharged, this is one of them, right? Obviously, right? The placenta, and everything comes out of there. But also you have one other thing, right, which comes out of there, which is the blood. You know what I mean? There's blood in the uterus all the time. So the blood also comes out. See, what happens is like this, right, that the baby needs fresh blood to survive. Because the mother is also always passing on blood to the baby. How is the baby getting its blood supply? From the mother. So she has to produce lots of extra blood for the baby. That's why, women who are pregnant are always weak, and they can't do much, and they're very, they have to sit down and rest and this and that, because they're supporting another life inside there. You know what I mean? So what happens is like this, right? That nevertheless, no matter how much blood she made for the baby, but she also has extra blood left over as well. There's going to be like a discharge of that blood which was not used, unused blood. So what happens is, right, that the blood comes out, the baby comes out, the placenta comes out, as we said. So what happens is, right, that just like any other discharge which comes from the uterus, that makes the woman tameh, right? It makes her impure, right? So in order to understand, right, what the impurity is over here, right? Let's say a person got a bruise, right? He went to play soccer, and he fell down, got a bruise and he was bleeding, and Jimmy knows about that. He likes to play soccer. So. The good old days, right? So you know how it is, right? You come back, and does that make you tameh? Does that make you impure because you bled? So then, why does the woman, become tameh when she bleeds? What's the reason for the woman? What difference is it between you bleeding or her bleeding? So the truth is, right, that her bleeding is a different story altogether. Why is that? Because that blood that she has every month, right, gets stored up over their blood. This is the whole menstrual cycle. You understand? So the menstrual cycle, the way it works is like this. Basically, every month, the body of the woman prepares for pregnancy, potential pregnancy, if she's going to get pregnant or not. This is what happens, right? So in order to prepare for the pregnancy, she has to store up blood. She needs like a fresh supply of blood, like a blood bank, You go, what do you have, type O, type B, type A, whatever. You have to know which type you have. So she's also storing up blood for her baby, the potential baby that may come. So what happens is that every month, why does she get the period? What's the reason why? Because the blood which was discharged when she didn't have a baby, in other words, her egg was not fertilized by the man, right? So therefore what happens is that now the blood gets aborted, discharged, because there's no use for it. You can't use that blood in a different occasion because, it has to be fresh blood. You know what I mean? You can't wait till next month or whatever, So that blood has to get discharged because it has no use anymore. So the way it's explained by my rabbi, one of my rabbis, he said that this is the reason why the woman becomes impure when she has a period. Why is that? Because there was a potential for life over there, right? And the life was not realized, and therefore she discharged the blood, and therefore when life is not realized, there's a potential for life, and it's not realized, so that discharge of blood becomes impure. There was potential, but it didn't get realized. So life, right, a person who's living, a living Jew especially, right? We're talking about a Jew, so a living Jew has kedusha, he has holiness in his neshama. He's a holy, holy neshama, very, very holy. So that potential was not realized, and the woman discharged. So therefore, what happens is that now, instead of the holiness, becomes impurity. It comes instead. So this is the reason why a woman becomes impure when she has her period. So similar a thing over here goes on, right? Which is what? That when she gives birth, also there's a discharge of blood, and that blood was not used for life, even though there was actually a baby that came out, right? But there was something left over there, some leftovers, some remnants that were not used. That's the way it is, right? Always when you build something, a building, you're always going to have leftover materials. Some cement got left over, some wood, whatever. So where does it go? Goes into the garbage, right? God knows what, whatever. Right? Goes to the junkyard. I don't know where it goes, right? So that's all the same thing over here. So what happens is like this, right? That now, says the Torah over here, something amazing. That usually a woman who has her period, right, how many days is she impure, according to the Torah? So the Torah tells us, right, it's 7 days. 1 week, basically, right? What does that mean? For the time that she starts bleeding, right? Let's say she stopped, the average period is like, let's say 4 or 5 days, right? On the average. So depending, on the woman, some are more, some are less. So the point is like this, right? That even though she stopped bleeding, let's say after 4 days, but nevertheless she has to wait till the 7th day is over, and then according to the Torah, she's supposed to go to the mikveh, the ritual bath, right? Which was downstairs. Go downstairs over there, right? And you go and immerse in there, and she becomes pure for her husband. That's the way it is, right? That's the idea. Oh. Okay. History. Okay. History lesson. So what happens is like this, right? Now, she has to go to the mikveh. What is it? Why? There's actually, somebody told me something really funny, right? That there were some communities where a lot of ignorance came into the community. A lot of people didn't know what they were doing, whatever. So one of them happens to be, right, not all of them, but some of the, in Iran, I heard from people, came from Iran, that some of the women over there were, instead of going into the mikveh, they were going into like a bath. They took a bath, and they thought that was also good. You know what I mean? They get into the bathtub, fill it up, go in there, and that's it. She's pure, whatever. So the truth is, right, it's not like that, right? So it has to be a mikveh. What's the difference between a mikveh and regular water? Regular water is drawn, right, from some source, some reservoir, right, upstate, whatever, right, wherever it comes from, some reservoirs, whatever. But this is rainwater or well water or spring water, right, mikveh water. It's totally something else altogether, right? So therefore, you need a certain amount of water. How much amount of water do you need to immerse yourself? You need enough water to immerse the whole body around, all around, the head to the toe, back, front, everything in one shot. If you have enough water to immerse the whole body, this is considered to be, right, tahor. How much is that approximately? So the approximation, right, according to our measures, it's about 1,200 liters of water you need in the mikveh. 1,200 liters. A lot of water, But it's not really, when you look at it in a big tub, it doesn't really look that much. It doesn't look that much. But that's what you need. That's the minimum amount, more or less, right, that a person needs to immerse into the mikveh. So that's interesting. So according to Torah, it's 7 days. That's what you need. Once the 7 days over, you go to the mikveh and you're done. That's it. Go back to your husband, right? But what happens is, right, that the rabbis here added, according to Talmud, they added another layer of stringency over here on this. What's the reason why they added another layer? This actually was a very important reason why they did that. Because when a woman bleeds, there's 2 types of bleeding that a woman can have. One is called nida, which we're talking about now, menstruation. There's also another type called zava. Zava. So what is the difference between this and that? Nida is menstruation, and zava comes from a different place, that blood. It's not the same origin. It's not from that uterus, the blood, right, that you have that builds up for nida. It's a different source altogether. Конечно. Okay, so as we said, right, that there's 2 different things going on there. So now the din of zava, if a woman has zava, she has that kind of blood, she also needs to be impure for 7 days. There's all kinds of rules there regarding that, right? So the truth is that nowadays, when a woman bleeds, we don't know if we're not really 100% sure whether she's nida or zava. You know why? Because this depends on the monthly cycle. It depends on which time of the month she bleeds. And today we don't, we're not so focused on this to concentrate which day of the month it was, and this day and that day. There's 11 days, and then there's the rest of the month. All kinds of cycles going on there. You understand? So therefore, the rabbi said, you know what? Since we don't know anymore how to, we're not so focused on these things. I mean, we could do it in theory, but the problem is that which woman now counts, her month and says, oh, it's the days of Zavah, it's the days of Nidah, 11 days over here, right? And the 21 days, right? 19 days over here. We're not so, we're too distracted with things. We have all kinds of things, distractions. So therefore, since the rabbis were afraid that a person is too distracted, especially a woman, to count these, right, differentiations, so therefore what they did was they said, you know what, when a woman bleeds, she has to do both the din of Nidah and also din of Zavah to cover both possibilities. So therefore, what happens is, right, in order to cover these both possibilities, you have to be pretty much separate for 2 weeks, more or less, right? Could be a little bit less than that, right? In other words, it could be, let's say if the woman's period is 4 days, right? She bled for 4 or 5 days. So then 5 plus 7 would be 12, right? So 12 days she would be out of commission, right? For her husband. This is the idea. So we're covering both bases. What does that mean? That according to, as we said, the laws of Nidah require that it should be 7 days altogether, whether she's bleeding or not. Doesn't matter. The laws of Zavah require something else. The laws of Zavah require that she has to do 7 clean days. What does that mean? She has to count 7 days clean where she didn't see any blood whatsoever. She checks herself every day. Twice a day, preferably. That's the way it is. So what happens is, right, that now we have to do 7 days of Nidah and then 7 days of Zavah. So it comes out altogether, you understand, we have about 12 days. Why is that? Because as soon as she stops bleeding, we start counting days of Zavah. Clean days, right? And therefore we cover, it's like an overlap there between Nidah and Zavah. It covers both bases. And therefore altogether you have about 12 days to 14 days, whatever. So this is the time of Nidah. So this is the time that a person has to separate from his wife. This is the idea, By the way, I noticed a lot of Georgian families I see, what they do is that when their wife is in Nidah, they go and sleep in a different room, they don't even sleep in the same room with her. You know what I'm saying? They go they go to the living room, whatever, things like this. The truth is, according to halakha, this is not obligation to do that. What does that mean? That in the religious families, what you have basically is, right, that you have in the bedroom 2 beds, Sometimes they're together, sometimes they're apart, or whatever, something like that, something like that. So what happens is, right, that the man sleeps in the same room with his wife, but in a different bed, that's all. That's the idea, Doesn't have to be a separate room.
Like the 1950s television.
I like that. I like that. Okay, that brings back memories. Yeah.
On TV, you were not allowed to say the word pregnant.
Right. All kinds of words like that. You were not to say yes. The good old days when America used to be, Okay. Okay. So that's pretty much more or less, right, the law of Nidah. But now we have here the laws of childbirth, which are quite different, right, over here. What's the difference, right? Over here, first of all, it depends on if you have a son or a daughter. Some kind of discrimination going on over here, you understand? The man is one thing, the woman is something else. Some people don't like this kind of stuff, discrimination, What is that? Man is one, man. We're all equal, created equal, But according to this halakha, not everything is equal. In this halakha, not everything is equal. So what happens like this, right? That if a woman gives birth, it says in the Torah over here, if a woman gives birth to a boy, that means that she needs to do 7 days for the birth, wait until she goes back to her husband, just like Nidah. Just like Nidah requires 7 days, she also requires 7 days. So what happens is, according to the Torah, after the 7th day, she goes to the mikveh, and then after that she can be with her husband. But now she's also counting one more count after that. What does that mean? She's going to count now 33 days altogether. So altogether it comes out to be 40. 40 days, right? 40 days and 40 nights. Right? Whatever. So, whatever, right? So, what is the difference between the first 7 days and the last 33? What's the difference? The difference is, as we said, that she's allowed to be with her husband after 7 days. So then why does she count 33 more days? What's the reason why? You know why? Because after the 33 days are over, altogether 40 days, right? Then she has to go to the Bet HaMikdash and bring a korban. She has to bring an offering. For a woman who gives birth has to bring an offering to the Bet HaMikdash. Today we don't have Bet HaMikdash, obviously, right? But there's still a practical difference there regarding this, right? What does that mean? That even though we don't bring korban, the Bet HaMikdash, by the way, until she what she does is that when she counts the last 33 days, she immerses again into the mikveh, again, this is the second time, right? And then she's allowed to go into the Bet HaMikdash. Before that, she wasn't allowed to go in. She can be with her husband, but she can't go into the Bet HaMikdash. It's a different level, different plateau over here. Two different things, right? So what happens is like this. Interesting thing, by the way, according to the Torah, okay, once she finished the 7 days and went to the mikveh, if you notice, by the way, I'm sure you've all experienced this, right? When your wife gave birth, right, we're talking about usually, the blood goes on for like a couple of weeks, It could go on for quite some time. You know what I mean? So, but you just told me, wait a second, 1 week you're allowed to go with your wife, that's it, right? What about if she's bleeding after that as well? So, you know what the halakha is? That blood that she sees after the 7th day is clean. Clean blood. Can you imagine? So there is such a thing as clean blood, there is such a thing as impure blood. They're two different things. Different time zone, 7 days, one time zone, 33 days, different time zone. So she could be bleeding at that time, right? And she's pure. She can still be with her. Very strange, right? But that's what the Torah tells you over here.
Now,
Yeah.
when you say what the Torah says,
Yeah.
that you can be with her,
Yeah.
we're not allowed to have sex for the hell of having sex, right? Sex is
Okay.
Yet the Torah doesn't stop a man from having sex if the woman is pure.
Yeah, this is a very good question, actually, what he's asking. Very good question. Very powerful question.
And yet,
Yes.
there has to be a limit to how many children you can bring to the world.
Well, before we get to the children, right, regarding the act itself, you know what I mean? That's what we're talking about, first of all, right? So the truth is, right, that a person, the most important thing about having relations with his wife should be to have children. You know what I mean? This should be the main intention of having relations with his wife. But there are times where a person has relations with his wife, but he cannot have children right now. Let's say she's pregnant or she's nursing, right, or whatever. There's all kinds of.
You're not supposed to enjoy.
That's a very good question. Also, we have to talk about this. By the way, we should really cover it. Maybe possible, right? But now I think we know a little bit more. We're a little bit more educated now than we used to be. Every year we get more gray hairs, so we're a little bit more smarter every year, So yeah. So what I want to tell you is like this, right? Regarding this question, they say, right, the main intention should be to have children, but a person sometimes cannot have children, right? So then what intention does he have over there, right? There's also another intention which is very, very important as well, which is what? That you're giving your wife pleasure, you're giving her, this is a marital duty, right? One of the duties of the marriage is to give your wife what she needs, and this is one of the things that she needs, right? This is from the Torah, by the way. A person is obligated to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're in the back seat. Forget it. No, I'm joking. Okay, so let me tell you something interesting about that, right? Regarding what you're saying. See, the thing is like this, right? That a person, we talked just about this now with the couple over here, right? The Khatan and Kala. The truth is, right, that when a person gets married, his main focus should be to serve his wife's needs, not his own. You know what I mean? What does that mean? There's an issue of not to be selfish. You know what I mean? So you have to put your wife's needs first before your own. This is one of the,
The Bible is completely misinterpreted. They call the people who believe in the Taliban.
Yeah.
It's all about the man.
Right. We're not practicing Islam. Believe me when I tell you. We have a different religion altogether. This is not Islam, right? It's certainly not radical Islam for sure, right?
The woman is not allowed to be in the same room as the husband. Right. Sit at the same table.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay. So, regarding that, right, the truth is that a person, the Torah always trains you, to be mindful of your spouse first before yourself. You know what I'm saying? First, give her what she needs, and then we'll see afterwards what happens. You know what I mean? Number one, because you have to be a giving person. The whole point of being a man, you're the leader of the family, you're the boss, you're the captain, whatever you want to call it, right? Is to be a giver. The whole idea of being a leader is to be a giver. This is the concept of Judaism. This is the ideal of Judaism. You have to give. So what does that mean? That when she needs you for this particular act, you have to come up and step up to the plate. Take a batter. Go step up to the plate. You have the obligation to do that if you can physically. Sometimes a person is tired, is sick, whatever, can't do it. Whatever. But if you're able to do, you have to do. What does that mean? If you know that she wants, or you know that this is the time now, that there's like a time thing. There's a schedule there, whatever. So if you know this is the time, you gotta step up to plate. That's the idea.
It's not against sexual urges.
So the first point is I'm going step by step, because we're going to get to everything. But the point is, right, number one is your wife's needs. This is a very great mitzvah. It's from the Torah.
Yeah.
What about your needs, right? Now let's get back to yours.
I'm sorry, but your wife
Yeah.
doesn't turn over all of a sudden and say, David, I want your children tonight.
Okay.
We're talking about pleasure.
Right.
Yeah, pleasure.
Yes. No, she doesn't have to say that. That's not the issue, right? I don't care what she says. That has to be your intention. You know what I mean? That's the idea. So, as we said, right, that now regarding your pleasure, right? Now we're going to get to that issue. So there, the truth is, right, the Torah tells us, halakha tells us that a person has to weigh this whole thing out. It has to be weighed out. What does that mean? You have to know yourself. How much do you need to function, as a human being? How much, what pace do you need? What rapidity that you need, right? How much do you need? You have to know yourself. So what does that mean? If a person he knows now, right, that he needs, and if he doesn't do, he's going to have a problem. You know what I mean? We're not going to get into the problems. You know what the problems are, right? So if he is going to have a problem like that, so he should go and do it. Why? Because that's also considered to be a mitzvah. To take care of his own, Yetzer hara, his own inclination. That's also considered to be, right? But they say that these are all like different levels. What does that mean? The first level is to have children. That's the highest mitzvah. Highest, right? Then we have for your wife. Then we have also for yourself. You know what I mean? Different levels. This going down, as we go down. But the whole point is, right, one thing the Chazal say though, right, all these things are considered to be mitzvah, what we just said now. There's one thing though which is not considered to be a mitzvah. You know what that is? This is considered to be a very foolish person. What's a big foolish person? That person doesn't really need it. He doesn't really, have any inclination right now. He doesn't feel anything in his body moving around, something shaking and moving there. He doesn't feel anything. So, but he arouses himself in order just to get that one more, that one more play, that one more batter's box. That's considered to be very foolish. You know why? Because a person should not use, the intimacy with his wife as some kind of like a cheap thrill. Let me do it again. Let's try it again. There are some people who like chickens. They say, as the Rambam says. What does that mean? 5 times a day they're with their wife. Yeah. The chickens. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, I got you. You understand?
Actually feel that they need to do it, but they do it anyway, or
Right. They just want to get a little, pop. A little kick. Something. A little. Yeah. That's the idea. You understand? He doesn't really need it right now. His body he's very calm. He's very, soothed, He has no, he's not really, But there's also a time where a man, feels like pressure, because he needs to be with his wife. You know what I mean? There's a pressure there, physical pressure also. So you feel like, it's storing up there, it's gathering up. You gotta, take care of your, that's the idea. But they say the Chazal about it regarding this, that if a person can overcome his inclination and not do it for himself, I'm talking about, right? Better not to do it. What does that mean? Wait till tomorrow. In other words, wait till it gets really, heavy, and then,